Namaste everyone. I'm architect Kavita Kulkarni, Associate Professor, PG Lead from BMS College of Architecture, Bengaluru. My paper number is KK22274. Paper title Village in the City, Urbanity in case of Bengaluru, India, under segment 1. These are the contents starting from introduction to the conclusions and recommendations. To start with introduction, urbanization in developing countries is marked by large increase in population and has consequences such as sprawl. As a physical phenomenon, urbanization takes two parts. One is expansion of existing urban bodies by engulfing adjoining villages into their territory and through independent transformation of urban areas into rural areas. Next, to understand the need of study, currently the urban village as an entity exists only as a concept. Administratively, it merges with the urban ward as soon as it's notified. The urban-rural context are strongly manifested here. In the wake of current planning mechanism, urban villages remain isolated, alienated entities to be exploited by property dealers, political power brokers, and speculators. The pattern of development that emerges in these areas is haphazard and chaotic. Uncontrolled invasion of non-compatible land uses and elimination of traditional interrelationships by outside and superfluous forces leads to the disintegration of the communities. As a consequence of economic and speculative forces unleashed on the villages, there is a massive transformation in their physical form and socio-cultural setup that takes place. These villages have experienced a surge of population growth and is confronted with the forced upsurge of deleterious activities, but it lacks any mechanism to control them. Even as urban villages provide economic advantages such as cheap land prices and inexpensive housing to service classes in these metropolitan areas, their social and physical environment undergoes steady degradation, resulting loss of village identity, both cultural and existential, with architectural design features hidden in the alleys of the city. Hence, there is a need for research with preliminary focus on architectural heritage of urban villages embedded in the city that narrates the urban saga, which harnesses to retain a strong cultural identity of the place. To start with the introduction of study area, a story of Halasuru to Alasuru, regional setting within Karnataka, Bengaluru, location, timeline of Bengaluru, right from 1517 CE onwards. Bengaluru, a capital city of Karnataka, is one such city which displays wide range of complexities. A timeline of Bengaluru from Halla to Uru, Pattana, and then now currently Mahanagara Palike, a Silicon City, 2000 CE onwards. The research methodology, the study includes identifying research problem based on understanding the existing urban-rural conflict with evidence-based methodology, a systematic inquiry into architectural heritage significance and maintenance to uncover the rural and urban. Problem statement, identifying the problem area, lost identity of village, hidden historic architectural connotations in urban fabric through study of background and transition of Halasuru to Alasuru. The objective of paper is to evaluate the cultural understanding implied with investigations that extends to the human scale, revealing challenges that are often overlooked at national or intergovernmental level. Literature study, understanding the definitions of urban village. According to Geigenman, urban village typically would mean a well-planned setup with a village concept of being self-sufficient and not having the need to travel along long distances to get daily things done. What is most important, perhaps, is that it's intended to tackle the problems of increasing populations in the cities. Further, present scenario in India, understanding the characteristics features of urban villages in case of Delhi and Bengaluru, a study made in India by Kapil Chaudhary in case of Delhi urban villages, Khirki urban village, South Delhi, those Lal Dora areas, silent features, especially mixed use zoning. Further, each of these villages here also differ from each other. In case of Bengaluru, these areas continue to retain strong cultural identity, places of celebrations of iconic festivals, Ashwakattes, place of worship for a village, architectural design features hidden in the alleys of Bengaluru, gullies, onis of Halusuru are transferred into alleys, facades, vernacular architecture. For the case study, Nantu Old Town Preservation and Regeneration in Chennai, it's one of the oldest town in city center of Shenzhen, China, founded as a city over 1,700 years ago from Jin dynasty. The past century, the ancient town has gradually vanished. The village was constantly expanding. The historical town is embedded in the urban village, which is again encircled by a city, sort of city in the village or village in the city. At the beginning of 2016, the design and research team of Urbanus got involved in the preservation and regeneration of this project. As you can see, before regeneration, after regeneration, potential transformed spaces, preserved and conserved, standing with the backdrop of urbanization. It is the only precious sample of Shenzhen's urban culture that displays the millenary cultural heritage alongside of particularities of China's rapid urbanization over the last 3 decades. Timeline, early settlements in Bangalore. The history of Bangalore as an urban center dates from 1537, founded by Kempegowda from Nada Prabhu dynasty. It was demarcated by 4 towers in 4 directions. Bangalore, much like its inhabitants, evolved and changed over time in response to various physical, sociocultural, and political reasons. Initially, as a group of settlement clustered around water bodies, self-sustaining city, and slowly evolved into complex organisms. The lake with the clusters of residents centered around the temple that was usually located at a relatively higher ground, fields on the lower ground, which is irrigated through canal system from the lake. Settlements, when plotted on the administrative boundaries of map of Bangalore region, it is observed that they are concentrated on eastern part of Bangalore city. This choice is justified by gradual slopes, lesser vegetation that needed to be cleared for agricultural purposes. Alsur is one of such earlier settlements of villages among remaining like Domluru, Beguru, Varturu, Bomanandi, etc. Since then, the city has grown several fold in population as well as in size. As the city expanded, it has repeatedly engulfed several such village settlements outside its boundaries. Origin expansion from Halusuru to Alasuru. Earlier settlements of Halusuru was formed during Hoysala dynasty. Halusuru tank was built by Kempegowda II. The presence of Kempegowda Tower indicates the Halusuru as eastern end of city. Halusuru was combination of Kerentota. Cantonment was set up in 1807. A lot of communities migrated with the Britishers during the formation of cantonment. Location of Halusuru within Bangalore zonal map of Eastern Zone. Within Eastern Zone, board number 90 as Alsuru, base map of Alsuru and neighboring areas. Currently, Alsuru is located in prime location of city. with an easy access to city center, having strong identity with respect to its origin, has tangible heritage aspects that is identified by state and central government, has strong influence of particular community, has built structures which are contextual to the culture and history of the place, understanding morphology right from origin of village 1954 till 2005, wherein the village is kind of standing within the backdrop of urbanization in case of Hulsuru. Further, history. Homeshwara temple was built by Chola dynasty. It was later taken up over by Kempegoda, who improved the temple infrastructure by building gopuras and 7 prakaras around the sanctuary. Temple had its own kalyani, which people used to cleanse themselves before going to the temple. It was a stepped stone tank. Kalyani existed in the map 1884. It was later landfilled after plague epidemic in 1896. Kalyani was excavated in 2010. As you can see, currently it is fenced and standing between the enclosed buildings and not accessed by the people. Capacity study, building age. Within the fabric of Hulsuru, whole fabric has predominant 100-year and above buildings, dilapidated buildings, unused buildings, water bodies, landmarks within the fabric, potential areas, Milkman Streets, Car Street, Ratabidi, Murphy Ground, Hulsuru Metro Junction, Nala, Someshwara Temple, Market, etc. Building height map. Within the older fabric, it's a lower density surrounded by newer developments of high densities. Metro edge, existing land use 2019, which has predominant residential within the older fabric with the core commercial on one side, public, semi-public, and defense on the other side. Remnants of village in the city, Rathabidi, temple premises, transformation, sections cutting across, understanding the transformation right from low density, temple premises, Car Street, Tamil workers, residences, artisans, high-rise buildings, gopuras, commercial buildings, public buildings. Further, typical Madliyas and Chetti house with a jagli katte, thinai facing the street supported their business. Courtyard houses with tulsi katte, thinai generally used by ladies in the evenings, women chatting after daily chorus, work home proximity, commonly seen heritage elements in the older precincts, facades, emphasize brackets, chaja details, the grand wooden doors, carved entrances, niches for lamps, facade details, sort of dilapidating. Cultural understanding implies the investigation that extends to the human scale and revealing challenges that are often overlooked at national and intergovernmental level. Visual characteristics in the Hulsuru urban village along Car Street, Guru Mudliar Yallama Street, Mudliar Art Street, Ramakrishna Math Road, Milkman Street. Heritage buildings were classified broadly under 3. Category 1, buildings of national, state, city level importance, historic importance. They embody excellence in architectural style and characteristics. Second type category is building of regional or local importance, possessing special architectural aesthetic element or a merit. Category 3, building of importance for townscape that evoke architectural aesthetics or sociological interest, and others which do not have specific architectural characteristics. Then understanding the SWOT issues and challenges, which has a strength of unique Building characteristics of Tamil style architecture, high pedestrian footfall, proximity to metro, floating population, presence of old market, which added revenue to the city. Weaknesses were narrow streets, inaccessible to cars to the inner residential areas, lack of building maintenance regulations, which kind of destroys the unique characteristics of precinct, high-rise structures, kind of which makes the temple less prominent. Then the threats were lack of footpaths for pedestrian movement, no parking spaces, on-street parking, lack of maintenance of Kalyani, and open spaces, unhygienic conditions of the old, unused, dilapidated buildings. Opportunities here are presence of unused dilapidated buildings which can be restored, reused, readapted, providing access to the lake, and the Kempegoda Tower through area occupied by the army, creating an access to Someshwara Temple in Kalyani, rethinking of old market, edge conditions, creating open spaces for public and leisure. Then broadly categorizing these issues and challenges into cultural, social, economic conditions, urban decay, increased stress on infrastructure, social stratification, loss of identity, relevance of master plan, and polluted water body. Recommendations and interventions are the research finds that architectural heritage is embedded in the urban village in case of Halasuru, a village in the city. To experience this spirit of heritage settlements, it is essential to walk through the old towns and streets to discover the blend of its architectural traditions and to create a physical and cognitive network between major historic elements of old precinct. A journey through a route can be made interesting by uplifting imageability of these streets in a way, celebrating urban village by creating a heritage tribe, and then also adaptive reuse of dilapidated buildings. I would like to conclude by acknowledging resources and references. I thank the organizing team of UVCT along with all the knowledge partners.